The first time I heard my brother calling my name outside the trailer at 2 a.m., I almost opened the door immediately until I remembered he had died 3 years earlier in Arizona. You're listening to True Haunting Log, where we share real haunted incidents from real people around the globe. And if you've experienced something you can't explain, send your story to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. Story 1. The Voice Outside the Trailer. This happened while I was working temporary maintenance contracts near remote desert land in the American Southwest, the kind of place where the nearest gas station sits nearly an hour away, and nights become so quiet you can hear wind moving across dry earth for miles. I lived alone in a weathered trailer near an isolated work route, checking water lines and electrical fencing for several ranch properties spread across empty desert roads. During the day, the area felt manageable: dry heat, endless rock formations, distant mountains, abandoned roads disappearing into open land. But after sunset, the desert changed completely. People who haven't spent time in remote desert regions don't understand how psychologically oppressive the darkness becomes there at night. There are no city lights, no traffic sounds, no sense of distance once the sun disappears. Just enormous black emptiness stretching in every direction while wind moves through dry brush outside. And after a few weeks alone out there, your brain starts reacting strangely to isolation. Every distant sound feels intentional. Every movement catches your attention. The ranch workers occasionally mentioned stories about things people heard outside at night, but nobody explained details directly. They would just say things like, "If someone calls to you after dark, make sure you know where they are first." I assumed it was local superstition meant to scare new workers until the incidents around my trailer started happening. The first strange thing seemed small enough to ignore. Around midnight one evening, I heard footsteps circling slowly around the trailer while I was lying awake trying to sleep. Not animal movement. Human footsteps. Calm, evenly paced, crunching softly through dirt and gravel outside the thin trailer walls. At first, I assumed another worker needed help because vehicles sometimes broke down on the desert roads nearby, so I sat up listening carefully for knocking or voices. But the footsteps never approached the door directly. They just circled the trailer once. Then again, slow enough that whoever walked outside seemed completely unhurried. I finally got up and looked through the window beside the kitchen sink, but outside the desert remained empty beneath weak moonlight. No vehicle headlights, no person, nothing except dry brush moving in the wind. The footsteps stopped immediately after I looked outside. Complete silence followed for nearly a minute before I finally returned to bed. Then, from directly beside the trailer wall nearest my bedroom, someone exhaled softly. My chest tightened instantly because the sound came from only inches away outside, too close, like someone standing beside the trailer, listening through the wall. I stayed completely still in bed while every instinct told me not to move again. Then slowly, in a voice barely above a whisper, someone spoke outside my window. "You awake?" The voice sounded familiar enough to make my stomach turn cold immediately. My older brother Ethan used to speak exactly like that whenever we stayed up late as kids. Same calm tone, same slight rasp in his voice. For several seconds, I genuinely forgot he was dead. That's how convincing it sounded. My hand actually reached toward the bedside lamp automatically before my thoughts caught up to reality. Ethan had died in a highway accident years earlier. There was no possible way he could be standing outside my trailer in the desert at 2 a.m. Then the voice outside spoke again, softer this time. "Open the door." The moment the voice outside told me to open the door, every part of my body locked up because, although it sounded exactly like my brother, something about the timing felt wrong. Not emotionally wrong, structurally wrong. Ethan would never have asked me to open the door without first explaining how he got there. I stayed completely still in bed listening while cold wind brushed softly against the trailer outside. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then slow footsteps began moving again around the trailer perimeter. Calm, measured, crunching softly through gravel beside the thin metal walls. "You really gonna leave me out here?" the voice asked quietly from somewhere near the kitchen side of the trailer now. Hearing it move unsettled me badly because the pacing sounded human in the most believable way possible. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just someone circling outside while talking casually. I forced myself to sit up slowly and grab the flashlight beside the bed, but I already knew I wasn't opening the door. Not because I believed something supernatural stood outside, but because no explanation made sense anymore. The nearest neighboring trailer sat almost 40 minutes away by road. Nobody should have been walking around outside my place after midnight in that part of the desert. Then the footsteps stopped directly beneath my bedroom window. Silence followed for several seconds before the voice spoke again, softer now, almost hurt. "You know it's me." My throat tightened painfully because the thing outside wasn't just copying Ethan's voice. It understood the way he spoke, the emotional rhythm, the pauses between sentences. I finally forced myself toward the window carefully and lifted the edge of the curtain just enough to look outside. The desert beyond the trailer remained empty beneath pale moonlight. No person, no movement, nothing except dry earth stretching toward distant rock formations and black hills far beyond them. Then something tapped softly against the outside wall directly beside the window. 3 slow taps, inches from my face. I jerked backward immediately while the voice outside laughed quietly under its breath. Not loudly, almost amused. "Still paranoid," it whispered. That sentence hit me harder than anything else because Ethan used to say that exact thing to me growing up whenever I double-checked locks or overthought situations. It wasn't a common phrase. It was personal. My pulse hammered violently while I backed away from the window because suddenly the trailer no longer felt isolated from the thing outside. It felt thin, temporary, like whatever stood out there understood the layout of my life better than I did. Then the radio near the kitchen counter crackled unexpectedly through heavy static. I stared toward it immediately because nobody should have been transmitting that late on the maintenance frequency. At first, only interference came through. Then a voice buried beneath the static whispered softly, "Don't answer it." The transmission cut off instantly afterward. I moved toward the radio cautiously and checked the channel display, but no incoming call appeared, nothing recorded, just silence filling the trailer again. Then, from outside, near the rear steps, I heard another voice. My own. "Who's out there?" it called softly through the darkness. Every muscle in my body tightened so hard it hurt because the imitation was perfect. Exact tone, exact pacing, like listening to a recording of myself played back from outside the trailer walls. Then my voice outside laughed quietly. "See?" it whispered. "I know you too." Hearing my own voice outside the trailer nearly broke whatever sense of logic I still had left because it wasn't an imitation in the way people normally mimic voices. It sounded natural, effortless, like something had listened to me long enough to understand exactly how I spoke when I was alone. I backed slowly toward the kitchen while the desert outside went completely silent again. No footsteps, no wind against the trailer walls, nothing. And somehow that silence felt worse than the voices because now I knew something outside was choosing when I heard it. I grabbed the radio again, hoping the earlier transmission had been another worker nearby, but every channel remained dead, except for faint static drifting through the speaker. Then suddenly the same voice from before returned beneath the interference. Older male voice, strained. "Keep the lights on." "Who is this?" I whispered immediately. Static swallowed most of the reply, but I caught enough to hear one sentence clearly before the transmission cut again. "It waits for you to look away." My chest tightened because the voice sounded genuinely frightened, not joking, not trying to scare me. Then, from outside, near the front steps, my brother's voice spoke again, calm, patient. "You talking to someone in there?" The footsteps returned immediately after that, circling the trailer once more. Slow crunching movement through gravel while the thin walls creaked softly around me. I remember gripping the flashlight so tightly my hand hurt because the pacing outside sounded thoughtful now, like whatever walked around the trailer was studying it, mapping it. Then the footsteps stopped near the kitchen window. Silence followed for several seconds before something lightly brushed across the outside glass. Not scratching. Fingers. Slow, deliberate movement, sliding once across the window pane. I forced myself not to look immediately because every instinct warned me something about the movement wasn't meant to be seen directly. But eventually, curiosity won anyway. Slowly, I turned my head toward the dark kitchen window. Someone stood outside. Not close to the glass. Further back near the edge of the trailer light where moonlight barely reached, human shape, tall, motionless, watching the trailer silently from the darkness. My breathing stopped completely because even from that distance I could tell something about the posture looked wrong. The figure stood too still, not natural stillness, controlled stillness, like someone intentionally pretending to behave normally. Then it smiled. I couldn't fully see the face clearly, but the smile became visible first somehow, pale shape appearing in darkness while the figure tilted its head slightly toward the trailer window. And even from several feet away, I realized the proportions looked subtly incorrect. The mouth stretched too wide for the rest of the face. A cold wave moved through my entire body. Then my brother's voice came again from the darkness outside. "You still scared of the dark?" The figure never moved its mouth while speaking. That detail shattered whatever denial remained in my mind because the voice came from somewhere near it without matching its body correctly, almost delayed, like sound reaching me from the wrong place. I stumbled backward instinctively, and the figure outside immediately took one step closer to the trailer light. Long arms, thin shoulders, human shape distorted just enough that my brain kept trying unsuccessfully to correct what I was seeing. Then from the radio beside me, the frightened voice returned suddenly through violent static. "Do not let it inside." At the exact same moment, the thing outside the trailer whispered softly through my brother's voice. "I'm already close enough." The moment the thing outside said it was already close enough, every survival instinct in my body finally stopped treating the situation like confusion and started treating it like danger. Real danger. Not because I fully understood what stood outside the trailer, but because deep down, I knew something important now. Whatever it was had been studying human behavior long before it found me. The figure remained standing near the edge of the trailer light with that same unnatural stillness, while desert wind moved softly through dry brush behind it. My flashlight beam shook slightly across the kitchen floor because I physically couldn't stop my hands trembling anymore. Then the thing tilted its head further sideways and spoke again using my brother's voice. "You don't even miss me?" Hearing that nearly broke me emotionally because for one horrible second my brain wanted to answer it. That's the part people don't understand about encounters like this. The fear isn't only external. The thing outside was reaching into grief, memory, loneliness, every vulnerable part of my mind, and using them like tools. I forced myself to look away from the window entirely and move toward the trailer door locks, checking them again, even though I already knew they were secure. The radio beside me crackled violently through static, while the older man's voice struggled to come through again. "Don't look at it too long," he whispered. "It learns faster when you watch it." The transmission dissolved into interference immediately afterward. Outside, the footsteps started moving again, not circling this time, approaching the trailer slowly from the front side. Gravel, crunching closer with calm, measured steps until they stopped directly outside the door. Silence followed, complete silence. Then 3 slow knocks hit the metal trailer door. Calm, evenly spaced. Every muscle in my chest tightened painfully because the knocking sounded polite. That somehow made it worse. Not aggressive, patient, like something asking permission it didn't actually need. "Cold out here," my brother's voice said softly through the door. I stayed completely silent. Another pause followed before the thing spoke again, this time using my own voice perfectly. "Open the door." The imitation was flawless, exact breathing pattern, exact tone. If I closed my eyes, I genuinely wouldn't have known the voice came from outside instead of my own thoughts. Then something brushed slowly against the metal exterior wall beside the door. Fingers. Long, dragging movements scraping lightly downward while the trailer creaked softly around me. I stepped backward toward the far end of the trailer, and that's when I noticed something even worse. The footsteps outside no longer matched a single person. There were multiple sets now. Some near the rear window, others beside the kitchen side. Slow movement surrounding the trailer from different directions while occasional whispers drifted through the desert outside. Some sounded like family members, some sounded like coworkers, a few sounded exactly like me. My pulse hammered violently because I realized the thing outside might never have been alone at all. Then one of the voices near the back window laughed softly and whispered something that made my stomach turn cold. "He still thinks they're people." Suddenly all movement outside stopped at once. No footsteps, no whispers, nothing. The silence became so complete, I could hear my own breathing echoing faintly inside the trailer. Then, slowly, from directly above me on the trailer roof, came the sound of footsteps walking across the metal. One side to the other. Slow, heavy. Something large enough that the ceiling creaked beneath its weight. And softly, through the thin roof above my head, my brother's voice whispered one final sentence. "You should have answered the first time." The footsteps crossing the trailer roof sounded heavy enough that dust drifted down from the ceiling vents while I stood frozen beneath them, gripping the flashlight so tightly my fingers hurt. One side of the trailer to the other. Slow, controlled. Like whatever moved above me understood exactly how much noise its weight created. Then silence settled overhead again. I remember staring upward, barely breathing, because every instinct told me the thing was listening for movement inside now, waiting. The entire trailer suddenly felt fragile, thin metal walls sitting alone in miles of empty desert, while something intelligent moved around outside, studying me. Then the radio burst alive through violent static, hard enough to make me jump. The older man's voice returned clearer this time, but sounded terrified now. "Do not answer any voice outside," he whispered urgently. "Not family, not friends, not yourself." "What is this thing?" I asked immediately. Static swallowed most of the reply, but several words came through clearly enough to freeze my blood. "It follows loneliness." Then the transmission died completely. At the exact same moment, something landed softly beside the trailer outside, heavy enough to shake the floor slightly beneath my boots. My pulse hammered violently because whatever had been on the roof was now standing directly beside the bedroom wall. No footsteps followed afterward, no movement, just presence. Then, slowly, my own voice whispered through the thin wall, inches away from my bed. "You know you want to look." I squeezed my eyes shut for a second because part of me actually did want to look. Human beings are wired to seek confirmation for fear. Your brain keeps telling you maybe if you just see the thing clearly, it will make sense. But deep down, I understood something horrifying now. The thing outside didn't want to attack me. It wanted recognition. Then another voice joined it near the rear side of the trailer. My mother's voice this time, soft, worried. "Honey, open the door." More voices followed after that from different sides of the trailer. Friends, coworkers, family members, some alive, some dead, all speaking calmly through the desert darkness surrounding the thin metal walls. "We've been looking for you. Why are you hiding? You hear us now." The whispers overlapped softly outside while slow footsteps resumed circling the trailer again from multiple directions. And underneath all of it, I heard breathing. Deep, uneven breathing, close enough that whatever surrounded the trailer seemed only inches from the walls. Then came the sound that finally broke me. A vehicle engine starting outside. I turned toward the front window instinctively because no vehicles should have been anywhere near my trailer at that hour. Slowly, headlights illuminated the desert beyond the glass, an old pickup truck idling near the road outside. Ethan's truck. Same faded paint, same cracked front grille from the accident years earlier. My chest tightened so painfully I thought I might actually stop breathing because grief hit harder than fear for one dangerous second. That was exactly what the thing wanted. Not terror, recognition, emotional surrender. Then the driver's side door opened slowly. Someone stepped out beside the truck. Human silhouette beneath the headlights. Tall, familiar posture. "You gonna make me stand out here all night?" Ethan's voice called softly across the desert. I took one step toward the trailer door before catching myself. Just one, but that was enough. Every voice outside stopped simultaneously. Complete silence swallowed the desert around the trailer. Then softly, almost excited, my own voice whispered from directly beside the front door. "There you are." Something slammed violently against the trailer exterior hard enough to shake the entire structure. Another impact hit near the rear wall immediately after. Then footsteps exploded around the trailer from every direction at once, while voices overlapped outside in distorted confusion. Family members, co-workers, my own voice, Ethan's voice, all calling my name simultaneously through the darkness. I grabbed my keys, shoved past the kitchen counter, and locked myself inside the maintenance truck parked beside the trailer without once looking back toward the voices behind me. The moment the engine started, every sound outside stopped instantly. Silence. Complete desert silence. I drove nearly 2 hours without stopping that night and never returned to the trailer afterward. Officially, I quit the contract because of psychological stress, which honestly wasn't false. But the real reason was simpler. I became terrified that eventually one of the voices outside would say something I truly wanted to hear badly enough to answer it. Even now, years later, I still struggle sleeping in isolated places. If someone calls my name outside after dark, I never respond immediately anymore. I wait. I listen carefully first. Because sometimes the scariest thing in the desert isn't hearing an unfamiliar voice calling to you from the darkness. It's hearing one you love. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to True Haunting Log so you never miss the next encounter. And if you've ever heard something outside at night that sounded almost human, send your story to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. And tell us in the comments, what other ghost topic do you want to hear real stories about next?